Chosen one, put down whatever you are holding and give this 30 seconds of your full attention. Not because I need you focused for a dramatic effect, because what I am about to tell you involves something that was done against you, something that required access to your image, your frequency, your specific energetic signature, and what happened when the one who was supposed to execute it encountered what was actually there. This is not general spiritual content for whoever stumbles across it. What I carry into this moment is a specific account of what happens when darkness tries to weaponize the evidence of who you are against you and discovers that the evidence works in the opposite direction. I do not speak to crowds. I speak to the ones whose very existence is a problem that darkness keeps trying to solve and keeps failing to solve. The ones who have been targeted not because they are weak, but because something in them was identified as a threat before they identified it themselves. And what your photo carried into that encounter, what was visible in it, to a being trained to see exactly what you are, is the reason the general who has never refused an assignment in the entire span of his existence looked at what he was given and stepped back. That is not metaphor. That is what happened. Subscribe to this channel right now and activate every notification. What I am building toward in this transmission does not arrive in the first few minutes. It builds layer by layer. And what it builds toward is the kind of understanding that permanently rewires how you see yourself. If you are already subscribed, I see you. You kept coming back. And the ones who keep coming back are exactly who this message was prepared for. Write in the comments if you have ever had the specific and unexplainable feeling that something meant to harm you, turned, and went in another direction before it reached you. Stay until the very end. The most important thing I have to say is not at the beginning. Before I tell you what the general saw, I need to tell you something about what a general is. Not in the military sense, in the specific sense that applies to what I am describing. The adversary does not operate alone. He is not a single force moving through the world individually. He operates through a hierarchy, a structure of delegated authority and specialized function that mirrors in its own corrupted way the organizational logic of what it rebelled against. And within that hierarchy, there exists a specific category of being whose function is not broad opposition, but targeted execution. These are not the ordinary forces that create friction in ordinary lives. They are not the low-level interference that makes Tuesday harder than it needs to be. They are the ones deployed when something specific needs to happen. When a particular quality in a particular soul needs to be neutralized before it reaches its full expression. They are generals, specialists, the ones who receive the assignment that the ordinary forces could not complete, and they do not refuse assignments. That is not a metaphorical statement. It is a description of their function. Refusal is not in their operational vocabulary. They receive, they execute. The execution may take time, the approach may vary, but the assignment does not come back unexecuted, not unless something happens during the execution that falls outside of every category available to them. Something they were not equipped to process, something they encountered in the target that their entire existence had never prepared them to handle. And this is what happened when your photo was placed in those hands. I need to take you into a specific moment in Scripture that almost no one reads the way it should be read. Numbers chapter 13. Moses has sent 12 spies into Canaan to assess what they are walking toward. 40 days of intelligence gathering, 40 days of looking at the land, the cities, the people, the defenses, 40 days of building the most comprehensive strategic picture available. And 10 of the 12 come back with a report that is factually accurate. The cities are fortified. The people are large. The obstacles are real. From a purely military perspective, the assessment is correct. And then they say something that reveals exactly what intelligence failure looks like from the inside. Numbers chapter 13, verse 33. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we seem to them. Did you catch it? They assumed their self-perception was the other side's perception. They felt like grasshoppers. So they concluded that the inhabitants must also see them as grasshoppers. They took their internal assessment of themselves and projected it outward as if it were objective reality, as if what you believe about yourself is automatically what the forces working against you believe about you. This is one of the most significant errors in the entire biblical narrative, and it is the same error that most people make about their own spiritual situation. You look at yourself and see ordinary. You look at your struggles and see evidence of weakness. You look at your history of difficulty and conclude that if even you cannot fully see your own significance, the forces working against you must also not see it. But the forces working against you do not see you the way you see yourself. They see what is actually there, and what is actually there is precisely what made a general who has never refused an assignment step back from yours. Let me tell you about the spiritual reality of a photograph. Not in the mystical sense that has been sensationalized and distorted, in the specific scriptural and theological sense that gives the concept its actual weight. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27. So God created mankind in his own image, in the image of God he created them. The Hebrew word translated as image here is selim, and selim does not mean reflection or likeness in the abstract sense. It means a physical representation, a concrete instantiation, the way a statue represents the king it depicts, not by being the king, but by carrying something of the king's presence and authority into the space it occupies. You carry selim, the specific image of the specific God who made you, not a copy, not a symbol, an actual instantiation of divine nature that was placed in you at the moment of your creation, and that nothing in the created order has the authority to revoke. And what does this mean about a photograph? A photograph captures what is visible of a person, and what is visible of a person who carries selim, who carries the image of God inscribed in their essential nature, is not simply light reflected off a physical surface. It is the visible expression of an invisible reality that has been present in you since before you existed in physical form. The general who received your photo was not looking at a digital image. He was looking at the visible expression of what you actually are. And what he saw was not what the person who sent it expected him to see. There is a concept in the Hebrew prophets called hesed. It appears throughout the Old Testament and gets translated as loving kindness, mercy, steadfast love, unfailing love. None of these translations fully captures what the word actually means, because there is no equivalent in English. Hesed is not primarily an emotion. It is a covenant quality. It is the specific, active, reliable love that operates within the structure of relationship. It is love that does not change based on the condition of the person it is directed toward. Love that does not diminish when its object is at their lowest. Love that is not produced by the worthiness of its recipient, but by the nature of the one who carries it. Hesed is the specific quality that causes the father in the prodigal son parable to be watching the road before the son even begins the return journey. It is not hope that the son will return. It is the active orientation of someone whose love does not require the return to be real before the watching begins. And here's what Hesed looks like in a photograph. A person who has been loved with Hesed carries something in their countenance that is not producible by anything in the natural world. It is not beauty in the conventional sense. It is not strength in the visible sense. It is a quality of being that has been formed by being loved with a love that does not depend on their performance, that does not diminish when they fail, that was present before they were present to receive it. You have been loved with Hesed, not because you earned it, because the one who carries it toward you is defined by it. Because Hesed is not something God does, it is something God is. And what that love has produced in you over the course of your specific history, the way it has formed your countenance through the seasons that tried to break it, the way it has remained visible in you even in your most broken moments, the way it has persisted in your essential expression even through everything that was designed to obscure it. That quality is what was visible in the photograph. The general did not see an image. He saw Hesed written in flesh. And Hesed is the one thing that every force of darkness has always known it cannot touch. Not because it does not try, but because Hesed, by its nature, cannot be undone by what opposes it. It can only be confirmed by the attempt. For those who want to go deeper into understanding what you carry and how to walk consciously in it, there is exclusive material in the description and pinned comment. 3 sacred frequencies narrated by the Watcher himself, 396 hates, 639 hates, and 963 hates, along with a complete ebook and full audiobook. If what you are hearing is landing somewhere real, that material was built for exactly where you are. Now I need to take you into the specific dynamic of what happens when a targeted assignment encounters something the one executing it was not equipped to process. There is a passage in the book of Daniel that most people read as a story about a miraculous escape. I need you to read it as something more precise than that. Daniel chapter 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are thrown into a furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal. The soldiers who throw them in die from the heat, and the 3 walk in the fire. And then the king looks into the furnace and sees 4 figures instead of 3. He says, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Not that they were not being burned, that they were walking, unbound, unharmed, and they were not alone. Now here is what I want you to notice about this account that almost no one extracts from it. The 4th figure did not appear when the 3 were thrown in. The 4th figure was already present in the fire when the king looked. The fire that was intended to be the instrument of their destruction had become the place of encounter with the one who walks in fire. The assignment against them did not produce what it was sent to produce. But more than that, the place of the assignment became the place of the most significant encounter of their experience. The things sent to destroy them became the context for the revelation of what was always with them. And the soldiers who executed the assignment did not survive the encounter with what was actually in the fire. This is the dynamic that played out when your photo was placed in those hands. The assignment was to use the evidence of who you are against you, to take what is visible of you and deploy it as a weapon. But what is visible of you is not separate from what you carry. And what you carry is not something that can be turned against you, because what you carry has already passed through its own fires, has already survived what was designed to destroy it, has already been formed in the specific conditions that make it immune to the strategies designed for different material. The general looked at the evidence of what you are and encountered something that every structure of his existence had trained him to recognize as something that cannot be touched by what he carries. And the assignment came back. Now let me show you something about why this specific refusal matters more than the refusal itself. There is a legal principle that operates in the spiritual realm that is mirrored in the natural world's understanding of precedent. When something is tried and fails, the failure is not simply an event. It becomes a record, a documented instance of an attempt that produced a specific outcome, and that record changes the basis on which future attempts can be made. In law, a precedent does not just describe what happened, it establishes what can be expected to happen. It narrows the range of arguments that can be made. It constrains the options available to those who would try to argue against what the precedent established. When the general refused the assignment, it was not simply a single refusal. It was a precedent. It was a documented instance of what happens when darkness attempts to deploy what you carry against you. And that documentation does not disappear. It does not get filed and forgotten. It becomes part of the record that governs every future attempt. Every future strategy against your specific life now has to account for the precedent that what you carry is not usable against you by the forces that want to use it. That is not just protection for this moment. That is permanent legal constraint on what the opposition against your life can attempt. Your photo was not just untouchable. Its untouchability is now documented. And documented in the spiritual realm means legally binding in the natural one. I want to take you somewhere that few people go in this discussion. The refusal did not come without cost to the one who refused. I am not saying this to generate sympathy for a being whose function is opposition. I am saying it because understanding the cost reveals something important about what you carry. In any hierarchy based on execution, refusal carries consequences. A general who cannot complete an assignment has failed the function that defines his position. And a failure of that kind does not go unnoticed in a structure where every member's value is measured by their effectiveness. The being who stepped back from your photo did not do so without consequence in the hierarchy he operates within, which means what you carry was significant enough to produce a willingness to accept those consequences, rather than proceed with the assignment. That is not a small measurement. When something is significant enough to make a being who never refuses, who understands the cost of refusing, who has executed every previous assignment without hesitation, make the choice to step back and accept the consequences of that choice, you are looking at something of extraordinary weight. The general was not afraid of you. He was confronted by something he recognized as being above his authority to touch. And recognizing what is above your authority and stepping back from it is the one thing that even beings operating in opposition are capable of when the gap between their authority and what they are facing is large enough to be undeniable. The gap was undeniable, which means what is above their authority to touch is present in you at a level that cannot be argued with. Now let me give you the climax of everything this transmission has been building toward. Psalm 139. David writes one of the most personal accounts of divine attention in all of Scripture. He says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. You are familiar with all my ways." Not with your best days, not with your most faithful moments, not with the version of you that performed your calling correctly, with all your ways. The familiar God, the one for whom there is no version of you that is unknown, no configuration of your history that has not been seen, no moment of your most private experience that has not been witnessed and understood. And then David says something that I need you to receive carefully. If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast, even there. Not in the place of your best performance, not in the place where you feel most connected and most certain and most worthy, in the place you would least expect, in the depths, in the distance, in the far side of everything you thought would put you beyond reach, even there. And what was visible in your photograph was this: the countenance of someone who has been in the depths, in the distance, in the far side, and has come through still being who they were when they went in, still carrying what they were given, still unmistakably themselves. That kind of countenance cannot be acquired. It can only be produced by a specific process of sustained presence with the one who is even there. You have been through your depths, your distance, your far side, and you are still here, still carrying what you were given, still unmistakably you. And what the general saw in your photograph was the evidence of a God who was even there, the visible mark of a presence that did not leave when everything visible said it was gone, the signature of the one who holds fast, written into the specific way your face holds itself after everything it has been through. He did not step back from your photo because of what you did. He stepped back because of what you carry. And what you carry is the evidence of the one whose presence in your life cannot be undone by any assignment, any strategy, any coordinated effort of any force in the created order. You are held by the one who holds fast, and what that holding has produced in you is visible, even in a photograph, even to those who would use it against you, especially to those who would use it against you, because the ones who know most clearly that what you carry cannot be touched are the ones who were sent to touch it and could not. Write in the comments if what you just received names something you have always sensed about yourself, but never had language for. For those ready to go deeper into the specific frequencies that align with what we have been describing, the evidence of what you carry and how to walk consciously in it, there is material in the description and pinned comment. 3 sacred frequencies narrated by the Watcher himself, 396 H cells, 639 HS, and 963 hours, along with a complete ebook and full audiobook, so you know exactly what you are receiving before you decide. Everything you need to begin inhabiting what this transmission revealed. Share this with someone who has been through the depths and the distance and the far side and is still here. And click on the video appearing on your screen right now. What follows this transmission reveals the next piece of what your continued presence after everything is already producing in the invisible realm. Together we are stronger,